How bad are Alabama prisons? Well, in 2025, there was over 200 people that passed away. Now, some of this is from overdoses and things like that, but a lot of it is from violence. I think they said it was triple, from what I read, it's triple the national averages in prison. And you have people being essayed, violated, going after those cheeks. It's just bad. And then you got prisons falling down. It's so bad that the federal government sued the Alabama Department of Corrections. And you can watch videos of where there's leaks in the ceilings, things falling apart, locks not working. They say in some of the dorms, it's so hot in the summertime that staff won't go in there. And they just leave them to run themselves. Which, when that happens, there's going to be a lot of violence. There's going to be a lot of bad things happening to people. I mean, bad. In my opinion, worse than being stabbed. And it has one of the highest rates of that, too. Alabama does. I've talked about Missouri, and I said it doesn't happen that much in Missouri. And I believe in other states it don't happen very much. It does happen, it's just not as often. But in Alabama, it just seems to be, that's the norm. So a lot of it has to do with overcrowding. You got these dorms and other places that this 3 times the amount of people that should be in there. For example, if it's made for 50 people, they have 150 in there. Then you have understaffing. And understaffing is everywhere. That's in Missouri too. They can't find enough people to work there. And the ones who do, they do hire, usually end up quitting. I'm sure it's the same thing there. And they go in there and they say, no, we don't want none of this. But then you have corrupt staff, and that's in every state. I told you about the Wild Wild West. South Central Correctional Center is probably worse for corruption. And I believe every state has that. I think in Virginia, it's probably Red Onion or Wallings Ridge. So I hear Holman, I think it's called Holman, is the worst in Alabama. They also talk of medical neglect. I believe that's going to be in every state too. I mean, Missouri has a sheriff. Now, sure, you can go to some prisons in Missouri and they'll be halfway decent. You go to others and it's just horrible. But all of them need to do better. Now, I don't know how bad it is in Alabama, but I know it's pretty bad in Missouri, so I'm assuming from everything I'm reading that it's worse in Alabama. So, my last video, I was comparing Missouri prisons to other prisons. And I mentioned Texas and I mentioned California and things like that. But I did not mention Alabama, and I should have. I've watched videos and read things about Alabama, and it's bad. It's bad when the federal government sues the Department of Corrections because of neglect, because of the abuse. That's another thing. They was talking about that staff is abusing, not only bringing in contraband, but are abusing the people who live there. And that's happened in, I'm sure, every state. I know it's happened in Missouri. I even saw it happen once in Potosi. People on the outside don't realize this. They don't think about it. Most people do not think about prisons until one of their loved ones ends up in prison. And then they want to know all about it. And then they start crying about the injustices. They start complaining. People need to do that before. They need to know what's going on in there and start complaining ahead of time to the congressmen and on just drive them nuts. Just go crazy, call them. Get involved in advocacy programs, prison reform. A lot of times on these prison reforms, I think they go a little too far. We don't want to make it like a luxury hotel for them, and which some of them do. They say, well, why do we even need prisons? Because somebody broke the law. That's why we need prisons. What do you want us to do to them? Just give them a pat and let them go? But that being said, I believe if you do crime, you should do the time. But that does not mean that you get punished while you're in prison, getting beat up and medical neglect and abuse and all this other things. No, you should be still treated like a human. And don't get it wrong, at least in Missouri, I can't speak on Alabama, there's a lot of CEOs and other staff members that seem like they care. Most of them all just want to do their 8 hours and go home. But you got some that seem to want to make everybody's life miserable, including other staff. Anyway, that's all I got for you on this. The reason I did this is because I may be interviewing somebody that was in the Alabama prison system in a few days. We'll see how that goes. But hopefully I can get him on and he can tell in his own words what's it like. Now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.